at the University of Waterloo. His interest lies in developing practical solutions that integrate hardware, software, and existing resources to address concrete challenges across discipline. Previously, Collin has worked with SATA to create a patient-centered mobile health record solution to address the unique problem of long-term health care in transit refugee populations. And it is very honored to have him to share the talk about the UX and the UI and UX design today. So everybody, please join me in welcoming Collin Fair.
Hi, so I'm Collin Fair, as introduced. I'm a software engineering student at University of Waterloo, and apart from the work that I mentioned in the introduction about with Dr. Peck and the patient-controlled health record project in Lebanon, I've worked at many startups. I've started startups. I don't know if that gives me any credibility, but hopefully I've designed, worked to design the user interface and user experience of a 3D circuit board printer. I've things that have never existed before, and we've attempted to come up with user interfaces and user experiences that will actually make sense for them. And I hope that today I can, sort of continuing on with what Dr. Peck said, that many user interfaces in healthcare are bad. They're designed to replicate a time from paper forms and handwritten notes and things like that, and you get user interfaces that well, I don't know, you've already seen a screenshot. Here's a different screenshot. They look kind of terrible. We've got boxes and buttons and labels and who knows even, I think this is like billing or something, I don't know. It's a really bad user experiences, and I hope that when you're working on your hackathon projects later this week that you can avoid user experiences like this as much as I'm an engineer, this looks great for me, everything's all lined up, everything's labeled, that's all I care about in user experience, but it's not actually what makes a good user interface or an easy to use product. And this matters especially in health applications, because these are the systems that users are actually using to treat patients. So if you have bad user experiences, if you had a bad user interface that makes it easy to make mistakes or takes a lot of time to, you've got to check all the boxes, like was mentioned earlier, you can't just scribble over it with a pen. Inefficiency, mistakes, training costs, if you have to train people how to use your impossible to use software, it's not very helpful. And finally, and as it applies to a hackathon project especially, is that if your software is difficult to use, it will never get used. People will look at it, they'll smile, they'll be like, yeah, that's some really cool software you have there, and then they'll never use it. It'll never see the light of day again because they don't want to invest the time, they don't want to figure out how to use it, and that's kind of your fault. That if you want people to use your software, if you want to get people involved and on board immediately, get excited, you want the user experience is one of the ways you can do that. You can show them forget yesterday's kind of old-fashioned user interface here. We've got something much better, and this is one of the ways that you can sell your product, is based on its user experience. If you don't have anything else, if you don't have evidence or results, you can sell it on your user experience. And what we're trying to do today here, or at least this is my dream here, is that for everybody here, I'm not sure who's engineers, people who have written software, put your hand up. User interfaces. Does anybody know what the term user interface means? Okay, I guess I should have explained that 5 minutes ago. So the idea, the software user interface is what's on the screen. If you've got, when I was writing this in Google Docs, it has a user interface. On my phone, user interfaces. It's what you actually, the buttons, the windows and stuff, things you tap and swipe and type text into. But the user experience is the bigger picture. It steps back. It's not just how does the user press a button and something happens, but it's why are they pressing that button? What are they accomplishing with your application? What do they once they close it down, are they feeling good? Are they happy? Are they, did they think that was easy, or did they think, oh, that was terrible and I never want to use this software again? So hopefully these techniques that I'm going to walk people through over the next however much time we have are good ways to, simple things that you can do to when you're designing your application or even thinking about healthcare applications. How can you say this is a bad user interface, this is a good user interface? How can we get from bad to good? How can you refine a user interface that already exists? That's hopefully what we'll get to today. And the plan for this, sort of easy 3 steps, is first I'll describe a product. This is a hypothetical product. The product doesn't exist. Maybe it does, but for our purposes, this product doesn't exist. It's just in your mind. You can do whatever you want with it. But we're going to think about what's going to be the user interface of this project, what's going to be the user experience of how this product is actually get used by regular everyday people. Then we're going to prototype this user interface on paper, and I'm not sure if people have paper or paper substitutes, laptops, things to write on. I saw a pack of printer paper somewhere outside the room that this used to be in, so I don't know where that paper went, but we'll need it in I don't know, half an hour, so we've got some time to figure that out. And finally, this will be in groups, and then we're going to hopefully pair up the groups so that you can use, quote unquote, use each other's applications. So this is kind of a fast-tracked version of what you do in the real world, where you'd actually prototype the application, have it running on a phone or something. We're going to have it running on pieces of paper. We'll see how all that works. So this is the product. It's a system. Imagine an application. It's on your phone, and it's designed to create new healthy habits in users. So maybe it's drinking water a bunch of times a day. I know there's research that says that's actually not what you're supposed to do, but a new going for a walk, taking breaks. These are healthy habits that people should be doing, but they don't. But what people do a lot of times is they spend a lot of time on their phone. So if we can somehow make a phone app or some sort of thing that runs on a phone and encourages people to do healthy things, this is just a list of examples. You can come up with whatever healthy thing you want, or you can just pick one of these if you don't have any ideas. It should be a phone app. And I don't know how many people we have here. A bunch. So just get into groups of, I'm going to say 4, with the people you're immediately sitting around, and just brainstorm. Think of a product, of a phone app, let's say, or maybe a website, whatever, that does this. So maybe it's a health coaching application. Maybe it's just something that pops up on your phone, I don't know, 5 times a day, and it's drink water, and then you swipe it to when you've drank a glass of water. I don't know if that's actually a healthy thing to do. And we'll do this for, I want to say, 5 minutes. So in 5 minutes, I'll continue on the presentation. But until then, I'll leave this up on screen, brainstorm, come up with ideas. I'm not sure if you've done brainstorming things before, but no idea is a bad idea in brainstorming. Start up around or whatever, launch on the App Store. And 5 minutes. Hello? So sorry to interrupt. You can continue. There'll be plenty of time for talking in about 5 minutes. So I hope everybody has ideas. They don't have to be good ideas. They don't have to be bad ideas. Ideas in general. We don't discriminate here. So we just need an idea, any idea for a product. It doesn't even have to be a new product. You can just like open up the App Store and like pick one. You can steal somebody else's ideas. Lots of people get very rich doing that. So, you know, why not do it here? The next thing we're going to do is think about the user experience of this application. So I saw some people, they're like sketching out, user interfaces and stuff. So that's good. But we're just going to take a step back and think like, who is the user of your application? It's probably like, I would expect it to be like everyday people. Somebody who sits at their desk too long and they have to have an app tell them to stand up and walk around, and it tells them, great, you've walked 10,000 steps today. Uses like the phone's accelerometer or something like that. So these are the users of the user experience that we're going to be looking at. And Dr. Peck had mentioned stakeholder analysis earlier in his talk, and this is sort of what we're going to do. We're just going to ignore most of the stakeholders. We don't care about people who pay money for the application. We don't care about people who support the application. Today, we just care about people who have the application on their devices, are physically, tapping buttons, swiping, doing those kinds of things. Those are the users we care about today. And I'm not sure, depending on who your application is, this might be, maybe it's doctors, maybe it's coaches who are like, live chatting with your users and saying, yeah, I saw that you ate, really healthily today, good job. So these it doesn't have to be the end user, it can be whoever is touching the application. And you can worry about who's paying for it later, not this presentation. So we're with these stakeholders in mind. I'm saying users a lot lately. What will these stakeholders do with your application? Like, yes, they will use the application, but like, what are they actually doing with the application? Why are they using it? Is probably the most important thing, because this is users. Users don't just you can't tell them to use an application. They need a reason to use the application. They're getting something out of this application. There needs to be some reward for them using your application. So why will they actually open it up on their phone, or swipe the notification, or chat with their coach, or whatever your product is doing? Why will your users actually use it is the first question you should answer. and then where is another thing. And it's a phone app, so people will probably be interacting with your application within the application. But also, since it is a phone app, it can be like notifications. It could be something that's running in the background. So as you're walking around, it's like it's counting your steps, or something like that. So there's a couple of places that users can be using your application, but just think about that, write it down, make a list, something like that. And finally, when, I already mentioned push notifications, timed events. So maybe it's like every time, 5 times a day, it'll remind you, hey, you should drink some water, something like that. So just for the next 5 minutes, just continue brainstorming whatever product you are, and think of it, think of who's going to use it. Think of who's actually downloading this application on their phone. What do they want out of it? What are they doing? And why will they come back for more later? Hello? So I hope everybody has come up with an idea of who is going to be using your application. You know, maybe it's, you know, whether it's like the office worker who sits at a desk all day, or the mother who takes care of their children, or the child who needs to brush their teeth. I hope you have an idea of the stakeholders of your product. And the next thing we're going to do, there we go, thank you. The next thing we're going to do is actually, yeah. So just, I don't actually know where everybody is in the room. So have you actually thought about, like, you know, written down, like, or thought about, you know, the user opens the application and then they do this and do that. Have you been thinking about, like, workflows in the application where people will actually be doing tasks? I assume this has sort of come up. Anyone? Yes, no? Right, so we need to actually, let's see, what time is it? Neat. So I'm going to combine this with the next step. So we're actually going to design user interfaces now. So for everybody who was sketching, like app screens and buttons and stuff, this is the moment you've been waiting for, because we're actually going to take the use cases that you're looking at, you know, who the user is, what they want, and we're actually going to turn that into a hypothetical application on paper. So I hope does every group have like somebody who knows what phone apps look like? I assume most people here have smartphones. So just when we're doing this, we want to design a user interface, and this is where, you know, you're going to have a screen. So like the user first opens the application, there'll be a screen that they see on their phone. You want to draw that screen. You know, maybe you don't have to like have a logo or anything, or, you know, work out, you know, color it in. You don't have to do that. Just like really basic. You know, what buttons will there be? Maybe there'll be like you know, something they can slide or swipe or type things into. Just, you know, the user interface of your application is what they're actually seeing on screen, what they're interacting with. And only as much detail you think is required. You don't have to like get super, you know, draw in graphics and icons and little like X's and checks and search buttons and whatever you want. Just like really basic wireframing, which I'll show some examples of here. So this is an example of what I'm hoping people produce. You know, you've got some buttons, you've got text here. You know, wherever you want, like the little X thing, I think that's a logo. So if there's something that's really complicated and you don't actually want to draw it, just put a square and like an exit through it and like write in what it actually is. The idea is that somebody should be able to look at your user, like your mockups, and say like, this is, you know I can click this, I know I can select a file there, and they get an idea of what your application is going to be like. Maybe not exactly what it's going to look like on the phone, but something that they can at least look at on paper and pretend that they're using the application, something that they can, you know, they can click and tap and get an idea for what it'll be like when the actual user, whoever they are, is learning smarter habits through whatever crazy ideas you've come up with, which I've heard some pretty interesting ones. So looking forward to see what this actually looks like on paper. And just this is another example. So for reference, this is like neat, and this is, you know, less neat. The lines don't have to be straight. Don't worry about the details. Just like throw something down on paper that gives you an idea of what the application is. Buttons, labels. And if you have multiple screens, like, you know, so you tap the button, you'll get taken to another screen. So just like separate, you know, a separate sheet of paper just beside it, like draw an arrow or something to connect one screen to another from the buttons, just so you can keep if your application has more than one screen, just keep things in order. Yes, here we are. For each screen, like if you draw something out, don't get too attached to it, because this is something that you see in general in a lot of places, in a lot of brainstormings, that you get really attached to your first idea. You're like, you draw something out and you're like, this is the best idea ever. This is the best user interface. There's no user interface that will be better than this. But the answer is no. It's probably not the best user interface. So for each screen that you make, try to like flip the paper over or go somewhere else, do something somewhere else, and draw a second version of it. Try to make it completely different. Do the same thing that the first screen did, but just like completely change it up. You know, put the buttons somewhere else, make it, get rid of the buttons entirely. Just try to do something completely different from the first time, because that'll open your eyes, hopefully, to the idea that you can, you've got your use cases, which is, the workflow here. You can describe a use case without using these words, without attaching it to a user interface, because the user interface is it's separate from the user experience, and you can put a different user interface on the application and completely change it, but still have it doing the same thing underneath. So hopefully if you just hopefully by just for every screen you make, try to make a second screen, try to make it completely different. And if you think the second screen is better, then look at the first one you write and say, why did how can we make the first one better using the second, or something like that. So do this. I'm going to say, how much time do we have? Do this for 10 minutes. For 10 minutes, just draw out phone screens, draw out what your application will actually look like when it's running on people's devices. And after this is actually, we're going to have people using this. So that should be interesting. Hello? So keep on working. I'm just saying about halfway done. Halfway done. So keep on working, but that's the time check. We've got about 10 minutes more, 7 minutes. Hello. So I hope everybody has some amount of their user interface. It might not be all of it. That's fine. I know some of your ideas were pretty engaged, pretty complicated. So you might not have had time to draw out all of the screens. That's fine. But if you just have any amount of your user interface written out, that's good enough for the next step. And the next step is the next step. I'm not sure if I can get my presentation on the screen. Anyways, the next step, which you can't see, you only see video of me, is to actually sort of pair up your groups. Like everybody's gotten their applications. You've drawn out screens. You know what they look like. Now, what I'm hoping is that I'm not sure if you have an even number of groups here, so this might be the downfall. But whatever group you're next to, go pair up with them. Let me just read the slide because I can't actually see it here. Pair up with them and show them your application. There we go. Yeah, so ignore 10 minutes each. I don't think we actually have 10 minutes each. I don't know, 7 minutes each or something. Take turns. Explain what your product does first. Like, don't just show them the user. Like, don't just stuff the papers in their face and expect them to understand. Show them. Just tell them what your application does. Like, if you're going to write the App Store description for your app, this is what you should be telling the other team. Don't tell them every detail of it. Just one sentence or one paragraph. What does your application do? And if you have enough of your application built out, if you've written drawn enough screens, you can actually try to have the other group use your application. Pretend to tap the buttons, shuffle the papers around, show them the next screen, tell them what happened. Let them interact with your application. And if you don't have enough of your application written out to do that, just ignore that step and just tell them about your application. Show them the screens and ask them what would you do? What does this screen tell you? Which buttons would you press? What do you think would happen? And let them interact with your application. And hopefully by doing this, you can understand things that might have made sense to your group. As you're discussing, you might have said, oh yeah, this is definitely the way we want to do it. If you go to another group, you might find that that's not actually the case. You might find that something doesn't make sense at all to the group next to you. And hopefully this show them the alternate version of your application. If you wrote more than one version of a screen, or if you drew it twice, different versions, like I hoped people would, show them both, see if they like one better than the other. Once you're done, just write down some notes. Write down just in general, what did they understand, what didn't they, and then trade it off. Try their application instead. And we'll do this for the balance of the time because I think this ends at 3:15. So hope that by doing this, everybody's gotten a better idea of user interface, user experience design, and when you're writing your hackathon projects, whether or not they have a user interface, I'd say they have a user interface. It's whether it's like a command line interface, or whether it's a phone app, whether it's a website, whether it's like a smartwatch wearable kind of thing that you're on your wrist. Your project has a user experience and has a user interface. So I hope you try doing this. Try doing this thing that we did in the workshop. Try doing it again come the hackathon when you're designing your interface, and hopefully it'll result in a better, more user-focused, user-centered design that actually works for the user, so your application doesn't die a lonely death of misuse. Hello. So the time is now 3:15, so this presentation is technically over. There's a coffee break according to the schedule. I don't know where the coffee is. Somewhere? There is coffee somewhere. But if you want to stay here, keep on working, I think that's fine. Or at least I don't have an opinion on the matter. But it's been a pleasure to lead you all through this exercise, and I hope you got a new view on how you can design your user interfaces when the next time you happen to be making an application or during the hackathon. So I hope it was a useful presentation.
May I interrupt your interesting moment for a second? We already end the session here, but if you want to continue working, you can do so. However, we are having the refreshment outside if you are interested in taking some break, okay? And tomorrow we will start at 8:30 for a registration, and then we will have several workshops that we can attend so that we can apply those interesting idea or information with your projects tomorrow, okay? And thank you, Collin, for the interesting and the fruitful workshop on how we can design the application related to the health affair, okay? Thank you very much. Thank you so much.